Hello and welcome to our channel, MarshStream, your public performance broadcast platform. Please make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. You can also donate to our tip jar and support the arts and artist of MarshStream by clicking the link below in the description. Check out our website, themarsh.org, for all upcoming live performances. Now, enjoy the show.
Let's welcome Mr. Brian Copeland. Hello.
Hello, Miss Stephanie Weissman. How are you?
I am good. How are you doing?
I need to warn you up front. I just got an alert from PG&E that they're doing rolling blackouts. So they're going to cut out power to 100,000 people over here sometime between now and 9 o'clock. So if I disappear, it's not my fault. PG&E cut my internet.
Well, at least you are warning us.
I'm just giving you a forewarning. It's like, so you know, well, where'd you go? What did I say? Did I do something? No, it's not that. It's PG&E because it's hot.
Well. It is kind of hot.
It is. Where are you right now?
I'm in Oakland.
How is it? I'm in San Leandro, and it's 100 in San Leandro. Where is it? How is it in Oakland right now?
I don't think it's that hot. Let me look at my. That's why we have these iPhones.
Have you been outside in the last half hour? Last 45 minutes?
No, I haven't gone outside. Are you kidding me?
You're not a real heat person, are you?
I hate the heat. Look at my skin, Brian. Look at my skin.
I was going to say, I've got tan lines, even.
You see, I'm sunburned.
You are sunburned, aren't you?
I'm sunburned from yesterday when I was filming my show with Wei Wei. Oh, shh, not telling anybody. Doing my little ballet moves down at Point Bonita. And I had lots of sunscreen on my face, but I didn't think about it. Anyway, it says it's only 73 in Oakland, but it was up to 88. But I do have a warning because I got out early to take my dog for a walk. Because you know how hot the blacktop gets? Yeah. That when it's like 77 degrees outside, it's like 125 on the blacktop. Mm-hmm. And my poor little dog I keep walking him and he loses his little paws and then he limps.
Wow.
He's a big
you know what you do? Because I took my dog out about 6 this morning for her little walk. And what you do is you put the back of your hand on the ground. And if it's too hot for the back of your hand, it's too hot for the dog.
I'm so stupid. I put the front of my hand on it. That doesn't count?
Yeah, the vet told me to use the back of the hand. I don't know why. Maybe the back of the hand's more sensitive or something.
It's kind of like kissing your forehead with your lips as you're telling if people have temperature.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So then anyway, that's what I was told.
Well, that's the first tip of the night. Use the back of your hand to figure out if the blacktop is too hot to take your dog or cat or whatever out for a walk.
And keep them inside otherwise. Are they being good? Your dog being good inside?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you got firecrackers going off yet in your neighborhood and cherry bombs and all of that kind of crazy stuff?
Well, we hear gunshots every so often. But maybe they're firecrackers.
I hope they're firecrackers. I'm not answering that. Well, we have gunshots. Oh, okay. Lovely neighborhood.
It is a lovely neighborhood, but you hear, right. It's not gunshots. What am I saying?
No, this time of year is
firecrackers.
Firecrackers is fireworks. And I have a little Bichon and it makes her kind of skittish, so I have to give her doggy Valium so that she's not so skittish.
Oh, well, some more tidbits. What do you mean, doggy Valium? What do you give her? Rescue remedy?
Trazodone, which is it's like a doggy Valium is what it is. And it's for when they're anxious, because I learned all the stuff. I've had this dog for a year and a half, and I got kind of a crash course in how to take care. Because I got her as a puppy. I got her as just a weaned puppy. And I learned all these tricks because there are things that make them anxious, such as fireworks going off. Some dogs get anxious when they go into the groomers. Some dogs get anxious when they go to the vet. They realize that they're going to get shot or something. So you give them a little half a tablet of Trazodone. You get it from the vet, and it's like doggy Valium. It calms them down. So there you go.
Do dogs get addicted to Trazodone?
I don't know, but I'm missing some valuables around the house, so I'm thinking my dog may be hooked on it. There are a couple of pieces of my mother's jewelry that I haven't been able to find, and she's been real mellow a lot. So I don't know. Maybe she is hooked on it.
Yeah. Well, maybe she ate the jewelry because she was so drugged up she couldn't tell it wasn't a doggy treat.
No, the doggy treats are completely different. The doggy treats that make her how to eat more, those are different.
Well, Brian, I have not, when did you premiere? I always forget. How many years ago did you premiere Not a Genuine Black Man?
We started in April. I found the thing. The first preview was April 1st, April Fool's Day of 2004. And we ended up running it. We did over 1,000. We've done over 1,000 shows, over 1,000 performances. Longest running solo show in the history of Bay Area theater is what it is. And I'm bringing it back, and I have some news that I can't share yet. I can tell you off the air, but I can't share it yet. But it's major news that I'll be making an announcement about publicly soon. Regarding that.
Not a Genuine Black Man?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well.
Uh-huh.
Well.
I'll give you a hint. Television is involved. That's the hint.
The hint. Is it cable or is it network?
Can't say anything else.
Well, whatever good sounds good.
Good. So bringing it back on Saturday to celebrate Juneteenth, the first Juneteenth that is a legal federal holiday, which is absolutely amazing, and the fact that it happened so fast. And I remember how long it took for Martin Luther King's birthday to become a federal holiday, and then for the states to adopt it as state holidays. And this was just like lightning. This passed so quickly. They get 100% of the senators, both Democrat and Republican, 100% to vote for it, and they won't agree, on the time of day, and they agreed on it. Then you go to the House, and you've got all but 14 white male Republicans who refused to vote for it. Everybody else went for it. It really says something that this passed so quickly.
So did they not vote at all, or did they vote no?
They voted no. They voted no, and when called on it, one or two of them said it's because it's divisive. Divisive. Okay, celebrating the end of slavery is divisive. So the 4th of July is divisive too, because it celebrates the independence of America from Britain. So therefore, it makes no sense. There's no logical reason for it. They're mostly from the South. Most of those 14 senators are from the South, although 2 or 3 of them are from Arizona. We've got 2 in California, Tom McClintock being one, who's from up here in Northern California, one of the few Northern California Republicans to be in the House of Representatives. But bottom line is it's still passed, and it is a federal holiday, and that means so much. So I just watched an interview with a woman by the name of Ora Lee, who's from Galveston, who's 94 years old. And her house in 1939, when she was like 12, her house was firebombed on Juneteenth because they were having a Juneteenth celebration. And so she has spent decades waiting for this day, trying to get this Juneteenth recognized as a holiday. And so this was just, she was there when the president signed the bill, and the tears in her eyes, and, and how hard she worked, and how much it means to her, and how much it means to so many people.
Wow, how fast did it get? How did it zoom through? When did it get put in front of?
It's been within the last week that a representative from Texas, Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, I believe her name is, introduced it in the House.
Just a week ago?
It's been in the last week that it was introduced. So,
wow.
So to go that quickly.
So there's a reason that I didn't know it was a federal holiday till yesterday.
Yeah, there's a reason. Now, this hasn't been in the works for a while. That's been discussed in certain, in certain corners. It's been discussed, but it's not. You didn't miss anything. This is the bottom line. This is something that just recently happened, and just at lightning speed. And as I said, I mean, when you look at Martin Luther King's birthday was the last federal holiday to be signed into law, and that was by Reagan. And Reagan's, they had to dragged him kicking and screaming to sign it. And his objection was, well, if we do this, then every group's going to want a holiday for their people. That's what he said. He said every group is going to want a holiday for their icons if we do that. It's like, come on. So finally he signed it, but then you had states that were holdouts, including Arizona, which had two, as I said, two congressmen who voted against Juneteenth. Arizona was the last holdout, for years, wouldn't celebrate Martin Luther King's birthday. They lost Super Bowls and all kinds of events as a result of it. But we have something to celebrate. I mean, if you can't celebrate the end of slavery, I mean, how do you how do you want to be that footnote in history? I'm the guy who voted against celebrating the end of slavery. That's like I voted against kittens and puppies too.
So they think they'll get elected if they vote against it?
And some of the places where some of these people are from, there were a couple of at least one from Alabama. I think Georgia was another. I think Mississippi might have been another. As I said, it's mostly southern states. These 14 representatives came from. I don't have the list, but I can look it up, or you can look it up. Just Google who didn't vote, who voted. Just Google who voted against Juneteenth, and you can see the fabulous 14. But the thing is that there's so many people who didn't know what Juneteenth was, including if you look back just a year ago, you had Trump who was going to speak in Tulsa, which is around the anniversary of the massacre in Tulsa on Juneteenth. And he'd never heard of it until somebody talked, some sense into him and said, do it on a different day. You don't want to go to the place where the biggest race massacre in history took place on the day that slavery was officially ended and hold one of your MAGA rallies. You don't want to do that. And then he took credit for it, saying that because of him, people know what Juneteenth is. He took credit for it. I swear to God, he did. He took credit for it. Because again, people know what Juneteenth is, so Juneteenth owes him.
It's amazing what he'll take credit for. His ignorance, everything. He'll take credit for anything. So tell us about Juneteenth. Can you
encapsulate what Juneteenth? In a nutshell, what Juneteenth is that it was, I believe it was 1862 that Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed the slaves. And for 2.5 years until 1865, the slaves in Texas didn't know that they were free. And on June 19th, 1865, the Union Army rode into Galveston and told the slaves that were there, hey, you don't have to do this anymore, you're free. And you have been free for 2.5 years. It just took us a while to get down here. So that's basically it. You had people in bondage for an extra 2.5 years, but that's recognized as the official end of chattel slavery in the United States.
And how do people celebrate it? How should we celebrate it?
I can tell you, like as a kid and stuff, we would go to Oakland, and there would be a lot of food festivals and those kinds of things, where how the day was celebrated. In terms of how you would celebrate it, I would say, and how everybody should celebrate it, is just on reflections on race in America and reflections on what it means to be free, number one. And number two, where we are today with race in America. I just finished reading the book Caste by Isabel Wilkerson that I want to recommend to everybody. It is the most important book I've ever read. I read, 3 or 4 books a month, and it's the most important book I've ever read. One of, if not the most important book. And it's just about the caste system in America, and a lot about slavery and why we view race the way we view race in this country. And so Juneteenth is a good day to reflect on that and reflect on why it is that we look at people or judge people or make assumptions about people. Even well-meaning people make assumptions about people based upon the amount of melanin in their skin.
So we were really thrilled for you to be able to do Not a Genuine Black Man on Juneteenth.
Love to do it.
And tell us how you think it's relevant, like it's more relevant today than it was 17 years ago when you first did
Wow.
it.
It's hard to believe it's been that long ago.
It took a while, but I did the math while.
Well, it's well, for those who don't know the story of what Not a Genuine Black Man is, where the title comes from is I hosted a show for KGO Radio for a number of years, and I got an anonymous letter once saying from an African American listener saying that I was not a genuine Black man. And I get this because I was raised in San Leandro when San Leandro was well over 90%, if not 99% white. And I spent most of my childhood as in my formative years as the only Black face in the room. So I started with that as a jumping off point and looked at housing discrimination and segregation and race and what it's like to be the only one in this play. And it was supposed to run, remember, it was supposed to run for 6 weeks. And then ended up it didn't close until I went to New York. And then when I went to New York with it, then I came back and we opened it again. So it's relevant today because unfortunately, a lot of the issues that are raised in that show, again, about assumptions of how people are supposed to behave, how people are supposed to speak and act, based upon the amount of melanin in their skin is something that, especially since the 2016 election, has come back to the forefront. It's disheartening to find out that there are so many closeted bigots, quite frankly, who now feel that it's okay to spew whatever kind of hatred, whatever kind of ignorance they want to spew and do so vocally. They feel that they have permission because of the 2016 election. I know, that's it. I mean, the look that you have is like what my mother and grandmother would have said is,
I did the Jewish version.
The Black woman version is,
Okay, so show us now what the Jewish version was.
I have no idea what the Jewish version is.
I reflected it, what I just did.
Oh, we'll do it again. Oh, okay, so go like this. Is it all right?
I don't know. I couldn't see myself. I'm watching you. You're my whole screen. I'm not looking at myself.
I didn't do it well enough to get bar mitzvah. Tell me.
You did it well enough to get bar mitzvah. You don't have to study for it. You don't have to have the party. You don't have to learn the Hebrew.
I want the party. I definitely want the party. Absolutely.
So anyway, so here we are, 17 years later.
17 years later.
And then how many years later since you all moved to San Leandro, though?
In August, it will be 40, and I'm still here. I'm in a different part of town than where I grew up. We grew up on the other side of the tracks here in town. But I'm still here, and it'll be 49 years on August 2nd.
Wow.
10 years since we moved here on August 2nd. Yeah.
And it's changed, right? Tell us how it's changed.
It is now one of the most diverse suburbs. Well, I don't know. I haven't seen the most recent census because all those numbers aren't in yet. But as of the 2010 census, San Leandro is one of the most diverse suburbs in the country, and meaning that it mirrors or closely mirrors what the racial makeup of America is in terms of the percentage of whites and African Americans and Latinos and Asians and so forth. As of the 2010 census, it was a microcosm of the racial makeup of America. Now, in terms of 2020, walking around, just walking around the street, going to the farmer's market, I would say it's the same as it was 10 years ago, but you never know until you see the data.
Well, and the percentages may have changed.
Well, I'm just speaking anecdotally. It looks the same, but the percentages may have changed. Absolutely, and I'll tell you why. And that is that, when we first moved here, the reason that it was so white was that the kids I went to school with, their parents were part of white flight from Oakland. when after World War II, you had a lot of African Americans from the South who were working here in the shipyards, who left the South as part of the Great Migration and were working in the shipyards at Oakland. And so whites not wanting to live next to blacks, if one black moved on the block, every white homeowner would sell their house and they would flee, and they had it set up over here in San Leandro with these homeowners associations that were like pseudo corporations. Like, like if you live in a place with a homeowners association, they can tell you, how high your bushes can be or what color you can and can't paint your house. Well, this allowed them to decide who was and was not a fit person to sell a home to. So the realtors were on board. They knew not to show homes to people of color and would not show homes to people of color. And each one of the associations had a city councilman, so the city council was on board, and the whole thing was enforced by the San Leandro Police Department. At the Oakland-San Leandro border, they used to call it the invisible wall, because there was a cop whose job it was to sit at the city limits and follow any black pedestrian, motorist, or cyclist who crossed over into the city limits. And once they crossed over, they would either follow them so they were so intimidated they turned around and went back across the border, or until they found a pretext to stop them. I'll tell you a story. Because what's interesting is once the play came out, and I wrote a book based on the play. Everybody had a story for me. Everybody had a story. It's like, oh, I wish I'd have known this before. I would have put it in the book. There was a black doctor who lived here in town. It was a cardiologist at Kaiser in Hayward. And I do make reference to him in the play that when he moved in, he had a shadow buyer. He had a white friend of his buy the house, and then once his friend bought the house, deed the house to him, and that's how he got in. And somebody opened up on the house with a shotgun. Okay, well, his son tells me the story of senior prom's coming up. It's 1968, he's 17, senior prom is coming up, and he is going to go with the daughter of this prominent family in town who's white. And the mothers are friends, and the two families are friends, and the boy and the girl are just friends, and they're going to prom together. Well, word gets around that this black boy is going to take this white girl to the senior prom at San Leandro High School. So the San Leandro City Council held a meeting off the record with no minutes and nobody to write anything down to decide what they were going to do about it. Can you believe that? This is not Mississippi where the White Citizens Council got together to decide, whose lawn they were going to burn a cross on. But they got together to decide what to do. And it turned out that the two of the councilmen, one of the councilmen his wife was good friends with the mother of the girl, and the other councilman's wife was good friends with the mother of the young man. And their wives were tasked with the job of calling the mothers of the two young people and telling them this can't happen. Can you believe that? The city council, and they ended up going with different people because of that. But that the city council would see this as so much of an issue here in Northern California in the late 1960s that they would go to these lengths over something as mundane as who a prom date is.
Geez Louise. And from this and from, your other work, that racism that occurred by you being, the one black person in this white enclave, affected your mental health, really.
Oh, yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, my second play, The Waiting Period, which I have done, and once we reopen, I will resume doing a couple of Sundays a month. I suffer from depression that is sometimes suicidal. I am in treatment for it. I'll be in treatment for the rest of my life. But part of the depression that I deal with has been diagnosed as PTSD from some of the things that I went through as a kid. When you spend your life as, being followed from aisle to aisle in a store, I've had cops point, as a kid, as a young man and as a boy, I've had police point their guns at me and put a gun to my head and, these kinds of things. Adults driving down the street, yelling the N-word out the window. these kinds of things, they are damaging when they happen. They're damaging when you're an adult, but they're even more damaging when it's on a constant or consistent basis and you're a young person. And people will say, well, then why did your mother stay there? And it's because she wasn't going to be run out of someplace. She and grandma were from Birmingham, and they left as part of the Great Migration. And she was not going to be run out of someplace that she felt she had a right to live the same as anybody else. I will tell you something I found out in the last couple of months I didn't know. So for years I speculated on how we lived in an apartment complex, and I speculated on how it was she got in, because I never knew how she was able to get in, because part of the story of Genuine in the play is how once the owners found out that they'd rented to a Black family, they tried to run us out. And what she did is her best friend, my mother was a secretary at Bechtel Corporation. And her best friend was also worked at Bechtel and was a white woman. And her friend is the one who went in and filled out the application in my mother's name. And her friend is the one who went and picked up the keys and then brought the keys to my mother. And my mother came and moved us in. And they apparently one day somebody said, "What the hell?" So that's how that happened, how that came to be.
And then they would come to your house, and your grandma would fill.
That's let's save that story for people to see the play. Grandma had a unique way of defending us and of retaliating when the angry mob came to the door, which was inevitable that there would be an angry mob that at some point would come to the door. We're lucky we were in an apartment, because if we were in a house, I read stories of cross burnings and. I'm not aware of any bombings or things, but other parts of the North, in other parts of this country, houses were, burned down or bombed or whatever. But because we were in a 100-unit apartment complex, none of that kind of stuff happened. There were other things that happened, but nothing as drastic as that.
What good did you get out of growing up in San Leandro? Pre-diverse San Leandro.
On a pre-diverse San Leandro, that I learned how to eventually be comfortable in a room with anybody. When you're the only one, and that's what one of the themes of what the play is. How do you navigate the waters when you're the only one? It taught me that it doesn't matter if I'm the only one who is like me in a room, or if everybody's different, or if everybody's the same. I can feel comfortable and I can be myself. So that's what came from those hard-learned lessons. I would say, I would definitely say.
What about schooling?
Went to public school for the first 2 years we were here, and I was in fights every single day because kids would pick on me. And I was in the principal's office every day, and I would get blamed for the fights, even though it would be different kids I'd be fighting with, and they would always start it, but I was the one constant, so therefore it must be my fault. So then my mother put me in private school and Catholic school, and it was the same thing for the first couple of years till I was in 7th grade, and this 8th grade kid spat in my face and said my family was a bunch of monkeys, and I decked him. And I don't even remember decking him. It was like one of the things where it's like a flash, where it was outside of my body. I decked him, and I broke 2 fingers. I broke these 2, and I have knuckles here, so I broke these 2 fingers on this hand hitting this kid. And after that, nobody ever bothered me again. Nobody ever bothered me again after that. So it was difficult. I can say that. The most important people in my life growing up who helped me through that were teachers. I had some wonderful teachers. My 5th grade teacher, looked out for me. My 8th grade teacher is the one who put me on stage and told me that I had talent, and she's the reason I'm a performer at all. Is because of her. Were it not for her, I never would have stepped foot on the stand-up stage. But she's the one that got me to love theater, and she gave me parts in plays and parts in plays that were traditionally played by white actors. She would give to me if I read well enough for it. I mean, I earned the part. She didn't just give me the part. I'd have to earn the part, but she gave me the same shot and didn't dismiss me out of hand, based on ranks. That happened some in high school. That happened in terms of some of the plays that I tried out for, based upon, well, you can't because this character has a brother and you're the only black kid here. And so we don't have another black kid who's auditioning. So no, you can't, so there was that kind of stuff that went on there. But the teachers are the most, if I were king of the world, teaching would be the highest paid profession, would be America's highest paid profession. But I never would have made it. Mary Lou Ramirez, God love her. And she's come to the Marsh. Every time I have an opening, she comes. And she's 80 years old now, and she comes out to cheer me on every time I have an opening.
So what about your siblings? How did it affect them? Are you the oldest?
I'm the oldest of 5. Yeah, I have 4 little sisters. 4, like they're little. 4 younger sisters. I always call my little sisters just because it starts that way. I never asked you, have you got siblings? Are you one of many?
Me?
You.
I'm one of 2. My sister is a philosophy professor.
Oh, no, older or younger?
She's 2 years and 10 days younger.
No, exactly. So you're the older sister. So she had did she have baby sister syndrome?
Oh yeah. And it was really, I had older sister syndrome too, because my sister was the smartest kid in the school. And I was a citizen, a good citizen. Every year she got scholarship. Every year I got citizenship.
Did you ever get, why can't you be more like your sister? Did you ever get that stuff?
She got it because I was the good citizen. She was the one that was too smart that they couldn't keep up with. So she was always in trouble.
She was too smart for the school. That's what it was.
She was too smart and, she was athletic too, Brian.
Yeah, what'd she do?
Whatever. She was the fastest runner. I was the slowest runner,
Wow.
So, yeah. I have older sister, whatever, but.
Yeah, so you're the oldest. There's a certain responsibility when you're the oldest that you feel for the younger ones. And what's interesting is that, yes, how my sisters dealt with it. And at the time, I didn't know because we didn't discuss these things. We'd go out into the world and these things would happen to us, and then we'd come home and we wouldn't talk about them. And when we first started to talk about them was when Genuine first opened, when the whole family came down from Sacramento to see it. And I think it was in its 2nd or 3rd week, they all came down to see it. And afterwards, we went out to dinner and we started to talk, and the same stuff that was happening to me was happening to them. And we realized that we dealt with a lot of the same things in the same way. I'll give you a perfect example. You know how like in grammar school, how you'll be reading aloud, they'll have you reading aloud out of a book, and one student will read a paragraph and the student sitting behind them reads the next paragraph and the student behind them reads the next paragraph. Whenever we had to do that, I would skim ahead to look for the words Africa, Black, Negro, colored, anything like that, because if any of those words came up, as soon as that word was read, every head in the class would turn and look at me. So if I saw that it was coming up, I would ask to be excused to go to the bathroom, and I would go to the bathroom and I would wait until I figured they passed that passage. Then I would come back to class. We'll come to find out, after the family saw Genuine and we were talking about it, every single one of my sisters, all 4 of them, would do exactly the same thing for exactly that reason. Because if any of those words came up, every head in the class would turn and look at me and would look at them.
Wow.
But they've all got stories, and we have a lot of the same stories, even though we never discussed them. We go out in the world and these things would happen to us, and then we would come home. And we would come home and live our lives as a family. That was when my father was around, very dysfunctional. And when he wasn't around, it was happier times. And I talk about that in the play as well.
So what made you write Not a Genuine Black Man? How did it come to be?
Well, I had wanted to write a play. I'd done 20 years of stand-up. I've been playing clubs and concerts, and I'd been touring with Smokey Robinson and Aretha Franklin and Ray Charles and people like this. And I wanted to write a one-man show. This comic Rick Reynolds had a wonderful one-man show that was a hit called Only the Truth is Funny. And I saw it and I just thought it was brilliant. And I thought, gosh, I'd like to write something where I can be funny as well as, have a point other than just joke, have a point and tell a story and be able to be poignant and be able to be dramatic. And I didn't know what to write about. So I'm trying to figure out what to write about. And I have the great Carl Reiner on my show as a guest. It's one of my comedy idols. Just passed away about 2 months ago. We lost Carl. And I told Carl that I wanted to write a play. I go, I want to write this play, but I have no idea what to write about. And he said, every writer performer comes to that crossroads. He says, because for me, it was 1959. I've been writing for Sid Caesar for 9 years. I had no idea what to write about. And he got the advice, find the piece of ground that you alone stand on and write from there. And he thought, okay, what's my piece of ground? Okay, I'm a married comedy writer. I live in New Rochelle, New York with my wife and my kids, and I write for comedy shows in New York. And that idea became the Dick Van Dyke Show. And he said, now what you got to do is find your piece of ground. I go, well, I don't know what that is. He goes, well, that's what you got to find out. And so I'm thinking, again, I don't know, it didn't even occur to me what, it was so obviously there, and it didn't occur to me until I got that anonymous letter. And when I got that anonymous letter, I decided I was going to write a show about what it was like to be different and be the only one. And I would walk my kids to school in the morning, and then I would sit at this little cafe called Sabino's by my house. And I had a stack of marble composition notebooks and number 2 natural wood pencils. And I decided to write every story I could think of about what it was like growing up the only one, what it was like to grow up different. Some things were funny, some things were painful. I realized there was a lot that I had repressed because the fact that it was so incredibly painful. And I wrote I didn't want to censor myself, so I wrote with the mindset that this is a journal, this is a diary that no one will ever see. Because if I thought about I'm writing this for the world to see, I might not have been as honest as I was. So I wrote this, and I ended up filling about a dozen of these marble composition notebooks. And then I went down to the library. I thought, let me go to the library and look at microfilm from when we moved here to find out what was going on in town to give it a backdrop. And the librarian gave me some information on the housing discrimination and the fact that there had been hearings, and then Newsweek magazine had come here, and all of these things that happened because of the segregation. I thought, wow, this is not just my story, it's a story of the evolution of a city. Okay, so now I've got this raw material I've written, and I've got this the story of this city that has changed so much. Now what do I do? So I saw a review in the Chronicle of a performer named Bob Duback, who had a wonderful show called what is it? Men an Oxymoron, or Men and Women an Oxymoron, something like that. And he got the little man jumping out of the chair. So I wrote to the critic and I said, I want to write a one-man show. I don't know how to do it. How do you write a one-man show? He goes, well, if I knew how to do that, I wouldn't be a critic. I'd be on Broadway. And I go, can you give me some advice? He goes, well, you need a director. And I go, and this is a back and forth over email. And I go, well, who? He goes, the 2 best guys in town are David Ford at the Marsh and David Dower at Z Space. So he gave me email addresses for both. And I remember I sent them both the exact same email. Here, I want to write this show. Here's what it's about. And I remember I put the subject line was help, all caps, with like 10 exclamation points. And David Ford got back to me. And we set up a meeting, and I said, I want to do the show about housing discrimination and about depression and about what it's like to be the only one. And he got it immediately. He got it, and we just clicked, and we have been working together ever since. We got another show, our new show, Grandma and Me, about single parenting, will open at the Marsh in the spring. So we've been working together. That'll be our fifth or sixth show together that we've done. But that's how it all came to be. Just a blind email, and he read it and he answered me and was kind enough to meet with me, sight unseen.
And there was something about Stephen Wynn too, wasn't there?
Stephen Wynn was the critic. Thank you. I blanked on his name. Stephen Wynn was the critic who pointed me in that direction.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking it was Robert Duback, whatever his name is.
Well, Duback is the one who did. The show was called A Male Intellect, an Oxymoron. That's what it was. The Male Intellect, an Oxymoron. That was Bob Duback. And Stephen Wynn was the critic for the Chronicle, who ended up connecting me with David Ford. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Good thing.
And I'll tell you something that's very cool. At the time, I was touring with Smokey Robinson, and I was going out with Smokey on weekends. And we played the Universal Amphitheater in Universal City, then in Hollywood. And it seats about 5,500. And it was me and Smokey and Gladys Knight. And the opening part of Not a Genuine Black Man, we had just finished, writing and crafting, and that's what I did. So I did the beginning. I worked out the beginning of the show for the 110-seat Marsh at the 5,000-seat Universal Amphitheater.
The Marsh works in very strange ways.
I practiced there to be good for the Marsh.
And you've been good for the Marsh ever since.
Thank you.
So maybe to switch up a little bit. I mean, here we are. We're whatever, COVID, we are.
Yeah.
The world is open.
In theory.
Well, in theory. And for the moment, at least.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll be a long moment, but hopefully, right? So what does that make you feel, like what's been happening with you during the whole COVID? What have you been doing? What does it feel like to think, okay, we're finally going to get this show open at the Marsh, which was supposed to open in 2000.
Oh, Grandma.
Yeah, Grandma Me, right.
Grandma was supposed to open in the spring of 2020. And so it's going to open 2 years after it was originally supposed to open. And well, I'll tell you, the first 6 months was just, because me, I'm always doing a million things, and suddenly I can't do anything. In addition to the performances I do, I also produce, and I produce stand-up shows, and I produce other artists who do solo shows, and all of a sudden I can't do anything. So the first 6 months, I sat on the couch and banged my head against the wall, and pulled my hair out of my head, and then I thought, well, why don't I take advantage of this time to write? So over the course of the shutdown, I have written 2 plays, a solo play and an ensemble piece that is going to hopefully appear in town. I wrote Jonathan Kellerman, the thriller novelist, is a friend of mine, and he's mentored me through my first crime fiction book. So it's called Administrative Leave is the name of the book, and I am working on just edits right now and rewrites before we send it up to publisher. So I wrote a TV pilot that I haven't sent out yet. I've got the first draft of a TV pilot. So I wrote 2 plays, I wrote a book, and I wrote a TV show. So that's what I did with my time when I was off, because I have to do something, because me, I'm just energy. I'm just a ball of energy.
Did you enjoy it?
I did. It was nice to have the outlet. And I did. I'll tell you, the one thing I didn't write about is I didn't write about the shutdown, and I didn't write about COVID, because that depressed me. Mm-hmm. That whole and I wasn't alone. They said the majority of Americans dealt with some form of depression and or anxiety during this entire thing. But in terms of where we are now, there are 2 theories as to what's going to happen going forward. Either people are going to be leery and are going to stay home for a while and not be ready to go out into the world yet because they're not quite ready. They don't know about the vaccine. Is it going to last like they say it's going to last? Is there a variant that the vaccine is not going to cover? That's one theory. Second theory is that everybody has been cooped up so long they can't wait to get out into the streets, and it's going to be like the Roaring '20s again. So I'm rooting for the second option. I'm rooting for the Roaring '20s. But I will tell you, I'll be honest, I'm not going to any, like huge concerts, where there are, 5,000 or 10,000 people. I'm not doing anything like that, but I'll go to small groups, and I'm looking forward to coming back into a theater again, both as a performer and as a patron.
I was at Fort Cronkite yesterday, and it was tons of people were there.
Yeah, good.
I couldn't believe it. Tons. Not
Good.
a single mask.
Isn't that nice to see? Isn't that nice to see?
I was kind of hoping for a lonely experience, but what I got was a ton of people.
I will tell you, I went to the movies and saw A Quiet Place last week, and the first time, and I'm a theater nut. I try to see just about everything that comes out. I have that great. Here's another tip I'll give. They have this AMC deal, AMC theaters, where you pay $20 a month, and for $20 a month, you can see 3 movies a week for $20 a month, which is an incredible deal. So that's 12 movies, and no blackout dates or times. You can go Saturday night, you can go to IMAX, you can go 3D. All of that is covered in that $20. So I was seeing, pretty much everything that came out, good movies and bad movies. And so I went for the first time since the shutdown on Saturday of last week to see A Quiet Place 2, the sequel to A Quiet Place. And it was, you could have fired a cannon through the place. There was nobody there.
Really? It was very quiet.
It was like a private screening.
Meanwhile, I want to invite everybody. I haven't even looked if there's something in the anybody wants to ask Brian.
Oh, yeah. You got any questions you want to ask me? I'm happy to answer them honestly to the best of my ability.
And meanwhile, I do want to say it looks like the Marsh is going to have their first show starting on August 17th. Our first run.
Wonderful.
So we're ramping up, so we are ready in the spring for you. And I think you might be doing some other stuff with us before then.
Yeah.
Tell us what that might be, Brian.
Well, I'd like to do some performances of Genuine in the fall when you reopen. Some performances of the play that I'm going to do on Saturday over Zoom. And the waiting period we had been doing free to the public as a public service. We'll be doing it a couple of times a month for people who deal with mental illness or depression or know somebody or love somebody who does. So I'll be doing those things. And we'll probably do a tryout or two of Grandma and Me in the fall or sometime in the winter in advance of the opening in the spring. So I'll be around.
Good. And Elizabeth asked, and I'm actually going to let you answer, but I actually think I know the answer. What was the name of the book Brian recommended? Cast.
And it's got a subtitle that I can't remember. I want to say the reason for our discontent. Cast by Isabel Wilkerson. And I am almost finished with her. This is her second book. She's a Pulitzer Prize winning writer for the New York Times, or she had been with the New York Times. I don't believe she is any longer. And I read her first, I'm almost done with her first book now. And her first book, it was called The Warmth of Other Suns. And what it's about is the Great Migration that took place between 1915 and 1970, when African Americans in the South said, enough of Jim Crow. Why am I living where I have to step off the sidewalk when a white person comes by, when I can go up north, and up north it's, it's a different place and I'll be free. So that's what the book's about. And there are, you find out that yes, there were freedoms in the North, but the North had its own versions of Jim Crow that when the migrants came. So, but it's a fascinating book, so I recommend them both. I'm on the last 10 pages, and I recommend them both. They're both incredible reads. And her her research is flawless.
So in terms of, we've talked about COVID. What about Black Lives Matter and where we are with that and where you're at with it and moving forward?
Well, I obviously support Black Lives Matter because Black lives do matter, and it's disheartening that it is controversial to some people to say that police should not shoot people of color or anyone who is unarmed. But it's primarily people of color unarmed people of color are the ones who are getting shot and killed. And to say that is cost Colin Kaepernick his career and cause problems for other people because this is somehow a controversial stance to take. And these are the kinds of things that are addressed in CAST. Black Lives Matter is here to stay as long as the problem is here, as long as the problem continues. And I think we are at a moment, you talked about genuine being just as relevant now as it was 14 years ago. After the death of George Floyd, we are at a moment when thoughtful people, and I, in my heart of hearts, believe that the majority of people in this country are thoughtful people, are thinking about the caste system that we have in this country and how we're supposed to be all equal under the Constitution in this country and how we're not and what they can do to further the cause of equality.
Yep. What a time. What a time.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
So I want to encourage everyone, first of all, make a tip if you feel like it and support the MarshStream. And also we have a video trailer from Not a Genuine Black Man. And I was thinking maybe it'd be a good time for Brian to play it. What do you think, Brian Copeland? I'm talking about Brian Williamson playing it. Forgot you both had the same name. I guess Brian, there it goes.
At the Oakland-San Leandro border along what was then East 14th Street, it's now International Boulevard, there used to be a big archway that said, "Welcome to San Leandro, the friendly city." A San Leandro patrolman used to sit right inside the city limits. His job was to follow any black pedestrian, motorist, or cyclist who crossed the city limits, even little kids. San Leandro, California, in the liberal Bay Area. 6 years after the Summer of Love, a black doctor who moved to town was greeted with a shotgun blast through his front door. A black family had a cross burned on its lawn. The National Committee Against Discrimination in Housing called San Leandro a racist bastion of white supremacy. It was considered one of the most racist suburbs in America. CBS News did a story. The U.S. Commission on Civil Rights held hearings. And then we moved to town.
There you are. You have your own little movie, Brian.
Trailer. That is from a performance from I think the second week. That video is from I think like the second week that I performed that show.
You said that was 2004.
2004. So that's from that video is from April of 2004. Yeah, the first preview was April 1st, and we opened. I think we previewed it for 3 weeks, and we officially opened at the end of April.
It's hard to believe 17 years has gone by since then.
Yeah, so much has happened. But it seems like the older I get, the faster time seems to fly by. My daughter, my daughter, my daughter Carolyn, is going to be 30. She's going to be 30 in August. She was born on August 2nd, coincidentally, which is the anniversary of the date that we moved to San Leandro. And it's also the date my grandmother passed was on August the 2nd. But I was telling her about turning 30, that the first 25, 30 years of your life take forever. The second 25, 30 years go by at the blink of an eye. Blink of an eye.
Well, Bender says that I did see your play and just signed up to see it again on Saturday.
Oh,
So,
awesome.
hmm?
I said, awesome.
Yes. I just heard something that sounded like a firecracker or a gunshot.
I hope it was a firecracker.
Me too.
I got some extra doggy Valium. If you need some, just let me know. I'll drop some up and grab.
I'll take it myself. Anyway, thank you so much, Brian. Thank you for being on Stephanie's MarshStream. Looking forward to your show on Saturday night at 7:30 p.m. on Zoom. Everybody hopefully will join us as well. And give a tip and come on back. And Brian Copeland, so glad you've been part of the Marsh all these years.
Well, the Marsh is a part of me, so I can't wait to get back there and back on stage. So August, everybody get ready to come back to the Marsh in August.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Steph.
Bye-bye.
I love you.